Good morning. I'm Halcyon, and this is a special edition of Hug Nation. Another opportunity to talk about suicide. This morning read about Anthony Bourdain taking his life. Was it yesterday or the day before that Kate Spade took her life? And these two examples kind of rattled me. You know, I'd heard the name Kate Spade. I didn't really know what a Kate Spade bag looked like. Never owned a Kate Spade bag, but I do know that she's someone who cashed out for over $1 billion on the brand that she built for herself a couple years ago, last year. And I know that Anthony Bourdain is like the coolest guy in the world with the best job in the world, travels the world and has adventures, does whatever he wants, tells stories, has adventures. Literally, like these people are the definition of winning. And something made him decide that they were done. Over the years, suicide has been probably the most repeated theme of anything I've talked about in Hug Nation. I look back and I search for it on YouTube on my old videos, and it's like 10, 11 times it's come up, and it's become an issue because it really is outside the rules. It really is a kick in the teeth to the general assumptions and agreements that we make as human beings for what you do. You know, you charge forward, you charge on. And so suicide is one of those things that really rattles you. And I just want to talk a little bit about it. You know, I'm someone who has a fairly intimate relationship with suicidal thoughts. I was taken to a therapist when I was around 5th grade, when my parents found me wrapping a cord around my neck. I don't know if I was really going to do it, but I felt a hopelessness and a darkness that became kind of a low point in my life that, on the grand plotting of my life and highs and lows, the darkness of 5th grade is still the scary place that I make life decisions to avoid returning there. But I've also over the years realized that I have to have a relationship with that darkness. And I have to acknowledge that death, suicide, the choice to end the game is always there. And it's become something for me that is a motivator and a recalibrator. And it's one of the and so sometimes the stories of this week of when you have the rock stars and when you have the movie stars and when you have the super wealthy deciding to make a permanent decision about a temporary state of mind, it's unsettling. I mean, one of the things that I think about, one of the things I use suicide to think about as a place to recalibrate and adjust where what my options and what my choices are. Because sometimes, your brain, and I won't get into this. I'm not talking specifically about profound depression, which is obviously at play here, but just the logical thoughts around suicide, which I don't think are insane. I think that in general, it is a very sane process to consider suicide. and hopefully decide that that's not a rational decision considering how many choices you have. Because often we get trapped in our thoughts and believe we have no choices, or we're trapped. And suicide can be one of those things for me. When I plot out all of my options, I can go, oh my gosh, compared to suicide, I've got so many choices. Now, I think, yes, it'll change my life forever if I sell all my belongings and go hitchhike. If I decide to donate my organs, if I decide to tattoo my face, if I decide to go, offer my labor and services to an organic farm or to a charity, or move to a rural area of Mexico and try to help build a school. I mean, there's whoa, compared to suicide, there's so many choices. And I find that the possibility, when you put suicide on the table, suddenly so many other things appear as possibilities. And it is a permanent part of my toolkit to get out of dark places and feelings of being trapped. Because whatever the consequences of, moving to a town I don't know anybody, could be dramatic, but nowhere near as dramatic as taking my own life. So, which is why when you see an example like Kate Spade, who took her life with $1 billion in the bank, it's such a significant. If that isn't proof of the sickness of depression, what is? If you can't see that act and say, this woman died with $1 billion and a living child, and still something in her brain said, I got no other choices. Whoa, that just points this super beam onto the reality of how profound depression and mental illness can be. Because suicide can be a logical decision. I don't know how you can. What are the logical steps? How can you? I was talking with a dear friend just a week ago, and they were sharing their story of their dark moment, and they were starting to make plans to take their life, and they realized they had about 10 grand in the bank, and they said, "Wait a minute, I gotta spend this money first." It makes no sense to kill yourself with money in the bank. And so she, in that space, made the courageous act of moving to a new city and having an adventure, and suddenly everything changed. And the darkness is still peeks its head. But that is how suicide can be the tool of freedom. Oh, okay, well, this will risk my security by spending all my money, but who knows what will happen? And then, boom, you can get to another place. Someone typing in a comment that suicide is more about money. Of course. I'm talking about choices and options. And for many people, a feeling of a lack of choices, or a feeling of being stuck or imprisoned, or feeling a lack of freedom, or feeling doomed to a prison of thoughts and a prison of pain and suffering. And money is one way that you can apply resources to make a shift. Someone else just wrote in that people in the public eye might feel they have less choices, and I think that's a big part of it. When when placed in a place of respect and adoration, it's got to be even more difficult to say, everyone thinks I'm winning and I can barely move forward. And it might be easier or feel easier to say, I can't face this. I can't face this failure. And so I'm just going to be done. And I know that I've had that thought. I've had many moments where I look back on my life and looked on achievements and positive impact and was like, wow, life has been way more than I thought it was going to be. I've had I've become a better man than I thought I would be. I've had more impact than I thought I would have. I've touched the world in a positive way. And what if I fuck it all up? Like, it would be so much better if I could die now. You know, Jim Morrison, you know, go out where in a blaze, you know, just not have the decades of depression and aging and falling apart to just totally weaken the bright light that I was in my prime. But even that is logic. And what's so hard to, when you see people that have all the resources and all the fame and all the and children, is that it is not, it cannot be a logical thought. People say it's selfish. I mean, can you see the action of a Kate Spade with everything, and the thought of selfishness is such a small player in the depth of pain and darkness and irrational thoughts that go into that decision making. And I should, I have many times stated, and I will state again, that I'm actually not anti-suicide. I believe in the right over our own bodies and our own minds and our own lives and our own consciousness. And I believe that we have the right to go out on our terms when we want, when we are of sound mind. And as someone who has not been in sound mind my entire life, I recognize how dangerous the darkness can be. And I feel like I've gotten way better now that I can tell pretty good when I can't trust my thoughts. Because my brain will start to make things black and white. My brain will start to say, I always do this, I never do that. You always fail. Nobody ever likes what you do. You never follow through on things. You always do a half-assed job. You never bump. And when I can hear myself doing those things, I know that there's something going on. I'm not in charge. Like, the voice is not me. But if you've never had that experience, if you've never had depression, it's very difficult to understand what this is like. It's not a feeling. You don't feel depressed. The world is fucked, and you are a loser. Do you see the difference? It's not like, oh, my belly feels yucky because I ate something. It's the belief that I am dying, something is wrong with me. And there's no separation between thinker and thought. It is truth. This dark thought is not a thought. It is truth. And if you're in that place where the darkness is truth, then all of these arguments about, well, you could have done this, or it was selfish, it's like, it's very difficult to make the distinction. And to me, the most dramatic part of my growth out of someone who was depressed was when I started to be able to detect when I was having those thoughts. And then I just can like go, don't trust, go into survival mode, watch a movie, don't do anything drastic, because you are not in control right now. There is thoughts that are clouding everything. And then just having faith, like it will end. I know my brain is totally convinced it will be this way forever, but I just have to have faith that looking back over my life, I've been here before. I've had this absolute confidence that it's going to be terrible forever. And yet, I keep getting through it. And if I can use a little bit of if I can have the perspective, I can look back over that plotting of my life and go, I've had massive joy spikes since the last time I had a everything sucks dip. And it's happened many times. And the more times it happens, it gets a little bit easier to have that faith. To have that faith in the face of what feels like truth. I mean, I love the phrase that it's a permanent answer to a temporary problem. I kept having moments in the weeks after Nick took his life. Was that 2 months ago? 6 weeks, something like that. I kept having moments when I would kind of wake up, or I would have like a little thought in the back of my mind, like a nagging anxiety thought of something that needed to be fixed, which is, I don't know about you, but my life is like that a lot. I have like, I keep lists of things I need to do because my brain is always like, there's something you haven't done yet. And it used to be way worse. Back when I was medicated, I could barely function because I was like, you need to be doing this. Oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing this. So now I still have traces of that where I'm like, what, I'm supposed to be doing something right now. What is it? Is there somebody that I have to make peace with? Is there a phone call that I have not made yet? Is there something, what is it that is undone that I need to make right? There's an open loop that I need to close for me to feel at peace. And after Nick passed, I kept having this little moment of like I would see Nick and I would go, oh, there's something like, did he offend somebody, or it was just like a flash. Like I didn't have this whole thought. It was just this flash of like, oh, I got to fix something with Nick. There's a problem, a temporary problem with like he offended somebody, or, he's in trouble, or he something, and I got to fix it. And then very quickly be like, whoom. Oh, no. That problem is no longer on the table because he made a permanent decision about it. So there's a lot of people have shared a number of resources for hotlines and organizations that are raising money, and I thank you for sharing those things. Jonty suggesting go camping, and that's actually a significant thing. There's so many things in our culture right now that amplify the disconnect. Living through screens, I think, has a very we are still getting in touch with the profound consequences to our spirit. And when we're having experiences of the world through a screen, it's very different than having an experience of the world. And a photograph or a video of a tree is very different than sitting under a tree. And there's a lot of reasons why We need to really actively pursue our mental health. We have put our faith and our trust in corporations, and they sound so benevolent in their desire to protect us and provide us with, ease and comforts, but we are losing our stillness. We are losing our silence. We are losing the connection to planet and others. And when I say we, I say me. I mean, I went walking on the beach yesterday, and I do it quite a bit, and still, there's just so much disconnect that can happen from the terminal experience of the world. But let me say, one thing that as awesome as it is that there are these organizations that, like hotlines, that's not the answer to everything and everybody. Oh, I did want to also, there's a couple things I still want to say. There's a movement of people that get a semicolon tattooed on their body somewhere. And it's that idea or the reminder that it's not the end, that there's still something coming next. The awareness, whether you are touched by or think of suicide, that remember that it doesn't have to be a period. It can be a semicolon. There is another second half to the sentence. There is another adventure. There is another chapter. And just having some reminder of that, I think, is so significant. My show that I did last week, 2 weeks ago, one of the big motivators for me to have the courage to do it was the awareness that I did it on my 47th birthday, which was half the age my grandpa was when he died. And that awareness of, holy shit, I potentially have another half of my life. Made me really see things differently. It was like a semicolon. It was like, fuck, I in a lot of ways, I was not thinking suicidally, but thinking of okay, I've done some good stuff. Now I just need to coast and not fuck it up, and just chill and not ruin the reputation that I've got. And I'm like, holy crap, half my life. I can't sit around making silly Instagram pictures for half my life. I gotta get courageous. I gotta find a hobby. I gotta let out these things that I can't hold things in my whole, for another half of my life. But I do want to make sure that I share that I am an example of someone who ponders suicide sometimes. And then I have profound joy sometimes. The story of my life is one of a roller coaster of profound happiness, joy, satisfaction, triumphs, and these lulls, dark places in between them when I go, I fucking suck. I'm never going to do this again. There's nothing good left in me. I hurt everybody I touch. I'm never going to write the book I'm supposed to. I always disappoint people, And thank God that I've gone through it enough times that I know that I'll get through it. I was listening to a Ram Dass lecture this morning, actually, before I read about Anthony Bourdain. And he said that he goes, one of the reasons why he pursues this path of growth and working towards enlightenment and working towards peace of mind is because when you die, you don't get relieved of all your burdens. If you live a life of whatever place you get to in this life, that's where you live in the next, was his point. And I think that actually helps me so much. That, I mean, we're in a classroom, and you can drop the course. You can kill yourself. You can say, I'm out. But you have to go to summer school. You don't pass the class. And so when you're in that shitty place, I think it's important to remember, like, you can say time out, but you can't really quit. And so that helps me sometimes, a lot of times, because I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to take this class. Whatever suffering I'm having right now, I got to take it again. So might as well fucking suck it up and do the homework now. I've got a healthy body. I've got a network of friends. Sure, I've got things that I wish were different, circumstances, whatever. But in the grand scheme of humanity and history, this life in this country with this freedoms, like, this is a pretty sweet way to learn. Because what if I had to, it's all perfect. That's Ram Dass has got such a great attitude. He's like, it's going to take many, many, many lifetimes, and you just keep plugging away because that's what you do. But there's a lot of Eastern philosophies, especially, that are like, oh man, being incarnated in your consciousness in a human body with human consciousness, this is such a sweet deal. You got to really work hard, clear it all out and find a place of service and like do the work, because this is such a good classroom. I mean, you can learn it other ways, but this is such a good way to learn it. So much more fun. I know that, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, but I would never call a suicide hotline. No way. I would never do that. Because I don't want to talk to somebody who's trained in helping me not kill myself if what I want to do is kill myself. I have enough faith in my own mind to know that, like, whatever, if I didn't want to kill myself, then I wouldn't. If I did, I wouldn't call a suicide hotline. But I might talk to somebody, to talk about what that would mean and talk honestly about it. And I've put that out here before, and I'll say it today now, that if you are at that point where you're pretty much good to go and you're ready to check out and you're like, I want to drop the class for whatever reason, if you want to do a kind of exit interview with me, I would be honored to talk and just make sure that you understand and I understand and the world understands, like, why you're doing it. And I won't talk you out of it. I might ask questions so I'm clear, because as I said, I believe it's your right. I might reflect back to you if you say something that doesn't make any sense. I may like, wait, that doesn't. Can you help me understand why that's true? And I'm not gonna judge you or talk you out of it. And I know that, so yeah, if a suicide hotline is not up your alley, like then, but you're ready to go, I'll do your exit interview. And I've gotten a lot of really beautiful offers for people to do my exit interview too. So I appreciate that. I'm not going to do it. Not right now. But I always reserve that on the table because, as I started talking about, is that I find it very helpful to consider it. And, I just heard someone say 10 days ago you spent all day planning your suicide. Malcolm, I'm glad you didn't do it. Not now is the answer of when. Good for you, man. I mean, life is long. It's short too, but it's long, and a lot can happen. I don't know. I'm 47, and I've had probably 20 profound spikes of absolute joy and triumph, and not quite as many bouts of true darkness. Tina, I will be in charge of making sure your hair is perfectly pink in all posthumous representations of you. So, a lot of what I'm talking about obviously is based on when you have enough enough clarity of mind to make decisions. And I think that the other part of this piece is the either profound depression or mental illness or medical psychotic medication interactions. There's so many examples of people who take their life and it just doesn't make sense based on conversations they had with their good friends and families. And I was like, wow, this is a shock. At the same time, you never quite know because I've at the memorial, I was talking to somebody who said, this is just so insane, like Nick would never do this. This is so unlike him. And I was like, really? I mean, I don't want to ruin your perception of this person that you love, but he definitely talked about this. And so who knows, when people say, oh, this celebrity would never have done that. It could just be that they couldn't talk about it with anybody. Oh man, there's so many good things being said here. Meredith's mentioning the connection to God as a higher power. Well, and that's that's there. And even everything that I'm talking about with like it being a classroom and you have to retake the class, that's based on a spiritual belief, or I don't know, belief is the right word, but my profound truth believes that, knows that, but without that thought, death and suicide can be a very different thing. It can feel like a relief or like you released from the prison of this human life. I know people are saying in comments that life is a gift, but it doesn't feel that way all the time, and it doesn't feel that way to all people. And if you can't see that life is suffering for many people, then consider yourself lucky. But also, I think need to have compassion for those that trudge through despite the daily suffering that their life is. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why people have that suffering, and there's a whole bunch of things that people can do. But when you are suffering and when you are depressed, it's very hard to do those things. One of the things that makes it so hard is when you're depressed and you know what would make it better. You know that if you exercised and ate better and got up early and saw friends and got in nature, oh, that would make me feel so much better. And then you don't do it and you go, I fucking suck. I fucking suck. And then you don't even get out of bed because if you get out of bed, you're just going to make it even worse. And that can be, it's this spiral that's very hard to understand, I think. There's, death is such a critical part of life. And one of the reasons why suicide is so much of a struggle for us is because we don't have the real, we don't have an intimacy with death. And we have in many ways, we eat steak and without the understanding that it required death to make that steak and killing. And we have these massive medical systems that just try to keep people alive as long as possible. I'm so grateful for the Burning Man ethos because it really helps to really embrace the transitory nature of all things. But culturally, we don't have that. We have, we manufacture things that have, that are built to break so that we buy more. But we're also trained to just do whatever we have to do to survive as long as possible and stay young as long as possible. And so when somebody willfully steps into the void, it's like, what? We're not even supposed to even acknowledge that death happens, and you went there by choice? There's a I guess I just want to say I don't have anything wise to make sense of it. I just wanted to share that these particular two suicides, Kate Spade and her billions in the bank, or billion in the bank, and Anthony Bourdain and his perfect life. I mean, I look at that as that's my dream job. Just flying around the world, having adventures, having a crew of people that's just letting you be you, and you just tell stories and have adventures, and everyone just, whatever you do, people think it's awesome. That sounds great. Oh yeah. And so to have here, the two most profound examples of winning isn't enough. Wow. So it really amplifies the awareness that life isn't about getting somewhere or getting something. It's about getting clear and finding peace and really stopping the doing. Again, I've been very into Ram Dass lately, and he talks about this. The process of being a human is you're always trying to do the next thing that will scratch the itch or relieve make something better, make it better, make it better. You go, ooh, you've got a hot tub, and you go, ooh, let's add some essential oils to it. Ooh, let's get some wine. Ooh, let's invite over some friends. Ooh, let's go out to dinner. Ooh, let's go get some ice cream. Ooh, let's go to bed and then do it all tomorrow. This constant quest to alleviate a burden or intensify a joy. And when you see people who have dramatically realized or gone down those paths so profoundly, you go, whoa, this path does not lead to peace. I'm sure it's still fun to, keep, scratching, but I think that's one of the reasons why you see these decisions made by those with all the resources in the world, is because where do you go? Like, oh, if I can't figure out how to sit and be happy with nothing, then I've already gone as far as you can go down the road of getting, acquiring, and doing, and I still feel like shit. So maybe this is all a massive wake-up call to meditate more and focus on our ways to help. Nothing soothes the darkness more than being of service. So I'll say that I love you, and if you're having a darkness episode, let me remind you that it's an episode. And if you know all the things you're supposed to do to make yourself feel better, and you're not doing them, I get it. You're still all right. And even though you can't see it right now, it's this really long timeline of our life. And whatever's happening now will not happen forever. Even someone in the presidency. I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate having a place and platform to be able to share. And, maybe these people that, I know that for me, when Nick's death was a real powerful slap in the face to me. And I've been showing up in the world in a different way since then. And, if there is a gift in seeing these heroic people, maybe it's a slap in the face to be like, check yourself. Like, don't spend so much energy charging after the finish line, because the finish line, there's no peace of mind at the finish line. That one, at least. So run because you like running. Yeah. So much love to all of you, much compassion to everyone who is dealing with grief and loss. I think that, one thing that I learned as I was publicly talking about my grieving with Nick is that everybody has been touched by suicide. Everybody has felt guilt feelings. Everybody has felt their world shook when someone takes their life. So we're all learning and we're all growing, and we just got to remind ourselves and each other as often as we can that it's fucking awesome. And part of what makes it fucking awesome is that it's not always fucking awesome. We chose this life because it's an adventure. You would not pay $15 to go to the movies and watch a movie where there was no conflict and there was no growth and there was no struggles, just people like hanging out and taking in the sun at the beach. That would not be a very compelling movie to watch, and it would not be a very fun life to live. So if we can pull back and see our lives from this grand perspective of what it is to be human, and we can actually, I believe, and one of the things that Burning Man has taught me in the temple is that, and this has been reinforced by things I've been listening to from Ram Dass saying lately, is that when you can have a little bit of separation from the experience, and if you can release your predetermined association with what an experience is, like grief is suffering, it can be an intensity that can make you feel alive. And part of the gift of this very fragile and responsive emotional consciousness that we live in is, it's not a bug, it's a feature. The intense feeling is it's one of the joys of having this fractional single consciousness as opposed to the one. And we are the one, but in this experience, we can only see a little bit of it at a time. And so then we go, oh gosh. And you go, oh, I suck, because you can't see the whole and you know how perfect it is. But I'm getting into a different topic, I think. So I will say thank you for shining your light and being there for others. And thank you for being there for me. Much love to all those who are feeling loss and sorrow, which is probably most of us, or all of us at some time. Tina saying, call your friends. Yeah. There's a lot of people out there that I think we could use some more connection in this world. I love you too. Have a beautiful start to your weekend. If you don't have anything to do tonight and you're in San Diego, Krysta Richards is going to perform, and it's going to be emotional and beautiful. She always makes me cry with her beautiful voice. And if you can get to town at the end of the month on June 29th, having a big hug-filled Pink Heart event in San Diego that I would love to. I mean, it's really, I hope that doesn't feel like crass promotion, because these are the ways that we can try to connect. But you know what? Thank you for the advice. Let's do a group hug. So wherever you are, grab yourself by the shoulders. And as we are grateful for this physical shell, we know that it's just a teeny tiny part of who we are. And we become aware of our thoughts and our identities and our labels. And we know that, yes, we are liberal, and we are Democrat, and we are Irish, and we are Mets fan. And these are all just the jerseys we put on to make this life exciting or adventurous, and sometimes make it terrifying and scary. But beneath the physical and beneath the realm of our thoughts and our identities is this profound oneness, this love and this light. And it can get obstructed. We can lose connection to it because there's so much going on in the realm of our thoughts and identities. But in this moment, let's just clear all that out and just let the light shine through us. And take 3 breaths together from that place of oneness, all of us cells in this perfect cosmic organism, vibrantly shining our light, being our truth, and healing one another as we do so. Inhale through the nose and out through the mouth. Ready? In. Last one. on behalf of Grandpa Caleb, all those who have moved on, and all the love warriors, happy Hug Nation. I love you. Have a beautiful day. And reach out to me or somebody.